Okay, it looks like we're live. We are live with Sound Booth Theater Live. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And thank you, AC Fuller, for coming and hanging out with us as we try and figure out how to do the character voices for your book, Ameritocracy.
Thanks for the invite. It's exciting. I've never done anything like this, and it's very cool to see you and see Annie in the back there, ready to go.
Really excited to I've never narrated a book like this, so this is a first for me as well. I'm super excited to be narrating my first political drama.
Yeah, I mean, we're so used to doing the more fantastic stuff. You know, game lit is our specialty. That's why, at least the company's specialty. You know, it's nice to take a little bit of break from the more fantastic stuff and get into something a little more real, a little more grounded in.
Though it's still plenty fantastical by nature.
Yeah,
it's interesting because it's very grounded in reality, but also our politics is so bizarre right now, not just in the last couple of years, but in general, that it's got a kind of a video game concept to it. This whole series, and a kind of over the top, almost satirical with some of the characters.
Yeah, it's very entertaining.
In a way that it should be. I think it should somehow work with your video game background. We'll see. I think it's going to be fun.
I'm excited to have a book that my brother would enjoy reading. That's like a milestone for me.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, something pretty much anybody can get into, really. I mean,
yeah,
totally. I can see some people being turned off by it just because they want nothing to do with politics whatsoever and have no idea, you know. But I mean, like, I'm in a way kind of that kind of person, but also, you know,
I like the book.
But I like the book, but it's also I dislike politics for the same reason that it seems like the main character in this book doesn't like politics.
Right, and that's exactly it. I think she was I mean, the background is that she was sort of fed up heading into the 2016 election with the whole process, not just the candidates who ended up running, but just the whole system. You know, she's fed up with the whole system, so to speak. And so she wanted to create an alternative that would be more transparent and more fair, and that, you know, celebrity and media would hold less sway, and that entrenched political power would have less power. So she created this whole alternative. And of course, because we live in America, all sorts of people come out of the woodworks who are interesting, from the far left and far right and center, and all sorts of bizarre and interesting people that were a lot of fun to write, and I think will be a lot of fun for you guys to perform.
Yeah.
Because there's characters who are, you know, based on people like Alex Jones and the Reverend Jesse Jackson, and all sorts of interesting characters that have unique voices, speaking styles, backgrounds, and political perspectives. That, you know, I think when I was talking to my brother about writing these, he said, don't be afraid to go over the top with everything. Like, don't tone it down, because if you look at reality, these people, political figures, are not toning it down these days. They're doing things more outlandish than anything I ended up writing. So you can really go for it with these characters.
Yeah.
It should be exciting. And yeah, I think, like you said, Jeff, a lot of people who aren't necessarily that into politics are enjoying these books.
And people who are into politics as well.
Yeah, and I'm a bit of a political junkie.
Great books.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm really, truly excited to work on them, to be spending the next, you know, however many hours of my life over the next few months delving into them. It's going to be a real treat.
Well, I'm thrilled with it. And when I first heard your voice reading on a totally different book, I thought you could definitely be Mia. You actually even look a little like I imagined Mia looking in the book, which is really cool. And it's just it's exciting. I think it's going to be great. And
yeah, I'll be able to play her in the screen. And when you get the screenplay deal, I'll be able to do her in the movie too.
I'm waiting for Netflix. I'm waiting for Netflix to approach me with a 3-season deal. So
just wait.
I'll be
just
sure.
Sit there and wait for it.
Yeah. I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting by the phone, but I am trying to do everything I can to get these books out there so that
Yeah,
Eventually, they'll
that could
if
happen.
if a book sells well enough, eventually people show up wanting to turn it into a movie. But
It
so
could
far, these
happen.
books aren't there. But I think they will be eventually. We'll see.
I do too. I have a good feeling about them. They're just so good.
Thank you. And as we get into the 2020 election that they're based around, maybe interest
Right.
will rise as
Yeah.
people as we get closer to the dates, because the whole series is set in the near future, as you know, but as some of the people listening might not know.
Right.
Well, I was going to ask you, AC, to give us a summary of the book, but actually, the first chapter, I feel like, does an excellent job of summarizing exactly how the entire series is going to kind of play out.
Yes,
Because
it really does. And if people read the
So-
first chapter and they aren't intrigued by the concept, they probably won't like the book. But people who read the first chapter usually are like, "Oh, this sounds like something that'd be interesting to follow for 700 pages," which is how long all three books together are. So yeah, we could just get going with that to give people a sense.
Okay, well, let's do that. Let's just start from the very beginning, Annie.
All right.
Now, through this process, AC is going to be possibly interrupting us. You know, if he's not feeling a character voice here or there. Probably this first chapter, that's not going to happen because we've already recorded the first chapter and kind of established what the characters are going to sound like anyway.
Yeah, the only thought I had on the first chapter, I think I already shared with you, which is Malcolm being, kind of youngish, hip guy from the Bay Area. He's going to become one of the hottest DJs in the country. And so that was the only thought I had on that, which is I think sometimes the voice sounded a little Southern sometimes to me, and that was the only thought I had on that. But other than that, I think the first chapter was already pretty much nailed.
Okay. I will keep that in mind and redo Malcolm.
He's I don't know how many spoilers to give away, but he's definitely a love interest in the book, and so I think you guys already kind of nailed. They have a little early chemistry, and that does not get consummated anytime soon. But they have some early chemistry. I'll leave it at that.
Maybe not ever. Maybe not ever.
Maybe not ever. Yeah,
Who
we'll
knows?
see. But he's not just a throwaway character. He ends up having a fair amount of time, even though he's not directly involved in the main political storyline.
Gotcha.
Cool.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
Yep. Go ahead and get hitting it, Annie.
So Mia is from Connecticut. So just so that you guys know that when I start reading this with like a little bit of a Connecticut accent, that's why. All right. The first thing I ever did in life was swing the 1988 election. The simple fact of my existence, combined with my father's hypocrisy, destroyed any chance the Democrats had that year. Maybe that explains why I avoided politics for the first couple decades of my life. Or maybe it was because I can't stand liars, and even the most virtuous politicians are liars from time to time. But I can't avoid politics anymore, and I don't want to. Things have gone too far. That's why I'm at Colton Industries in Santa Clarissa, California, just 15 minutes from Stanford University. I'm sitting in the steel and marble lobby of Building 7 as team after team of Project X presenters stream out of the Hall of Doom. The hall where dreams go to die. The hall where I'll be spending the most important 15 minutes of my life. I should be refining my closing pitch and double-checking my spreadsheets, but I'm nervous, so I distract myself by peering at the cute guy at the reception counter. He greeted me when I arrived, handed me a bottle of spring water, and asked me to take a seat. For the last 20 minutes, I've been sitting in a leather armchair, watching his high-top fade peek out over the top of his iMac. The back panel of the screen is covered with stickers, mostly pictures of turntables and digital equipment I don't recognize. One particular sticker piques my interest. Willie Nelson for president. And it's got me walking over to talk with him. I could use the excuse to do something other than second-guess myself some more. I stand directly in front of his monitor, so he can't see me, as I read his nameplate. Malcolm Rozier. I'm trying to think of something witty to say about the fact that we have the same initials, when Malcolm slides his chair around and says,
Can I help you, Miss Rhodes?
It's Mia. He smiles.
Can I help you, Mia?
I was just wondering, will you have a USB-C connector from for my MacBook? In the presentation hall, I mean. He looks at me like he looks at me like he's not sure if I'm serious. Then a wave of recognition passes over his face.
You didn't get the email?
You still sound kind of southern to me.
Do I? You didn't get the email? Do I?
A little bit. How do people? I'm from California, and I can barely remember how people from California sound. Because I think of it, I think of it as no accent whatsoever.
Right.
But people who aren't from the Bay Area probably recognize us as having some
also,
accent.
like really, like you didn't get the email. Like maybe sort of like a sort of slightly faster pace and
Yeah,
like
it's like
high
faster and a little
IQ,
hipper.
hipper,
Yeah, faster,
and sort of
hipper,
like
high IQ.
fast, hip, like maybe slightly like I
Okay,
don't know.
that's right.
He's also like right now he's sort of a high end secretary to one of the most powerful guys on earth. Like he's secretary to sort of an Elon Musk type. So
Sure.
he'd have like an efficiency and a kind of but also he's not living his dream. So he's
right.
He would have kind of an efficient, fast professionalism to him probably.
Gotcha. You didn't get the email?
Sorry, I looked away from the page and now I'm hopelessly lost. I pride myself on being prepared. Some say I over-prepare. Back at my day job running the Seattle offices of the online magazine The Barker, my coworkers tell me I'm a bit of a Monica. But I see from the way he looks at me, his dark brown eyes full of concern, that I've missed something.
I emailed all presenters this morning.
Malcolm's voice is deep and soothing, but his message isn't.
No PowerPoint presentations. The judges have reviewed your materials, including the PowerPoint, so they're limiting the final round to a 5-minute opening statement followed by a 10-minute Q&A.
No PowerPoint? I stare at him, trying to play it cool, but inside, I'm panicking. Stalling, I tap the Willie Nelson sticker on the back of his monitor and say, "Now he's a candidate we can all get behind." Malcolm stands and leans forward across the counter, turning his head to see the sticker.
Well, sorry, you broke up real bad there. For the connection was really bad.
Malcolm stands and leans forward across the counter, turning his head to see the sticker.
Oh yeah, that.
Country music fan?
Sort of. I love Willie, Johnny Cash, Woody Guthrie, DeFord Bailey, all the old Americana. Not so much with the modern bro country stuff.
I'm vaguely familiar with all those names, but my country music knowledge doesn't extend much beyond early Taylor Swift. Malcolm is tall, almost a foot taller than me, and I have to lean back a little to meet his eyes. I run my hand across the curved back of the monitor. And what are these other stickers?
Equipment companies. I DJ in the evenings and on weekends, so...
He glances around the waiting area, then digs a business card out of the inner pocket of his blue blazer.
I'm on YouTube.
The card lists a website, a YouTube channel, and the name Rozier Productions. Cool, I manage, smiling despite the sinking realization that I'm about to bomb my presentation. Malcolm cocks his head and squints.
You didn't get the email, did you?
I try not to check my email when I have a big event, which is like never. Too much stuff from work, too many things to throw me off my game. I say the last part like a total dork and immediately regret it.
Shouldn't be more than a few minutes. Can I get you another water or some coffee or anything?
Nah, I'm just gonna go and try to memorize a few things.
I'm sure you'll do fine in there.
Sure, I say, disagreeing in my head as I walk back toward my seat.
You know, I follow your website.
Excuse me. He calls after me. I I turn on the low heels of my cream and black T-straps and shoot him a look. He's got a shy smile on his face, nerdy but handsome. It puts me at ease. Thanks. I'm genuinely surprised he's taken the time to research my site.
What you're doing is awesome.
He continues.
We need viable third-party candidates and independent candidates. I hope you win the money.
Will we continue?
Yep.
Okay.
I
10 minutes
like
later.
I like the new Malcolm voice though. I think that's definitely gonna do it.
Good. 10 minutes later, Malcolm leads me into the presentation room, which looks like a luxury movie theater. 6 rows of seats angled slightly, so the rows in the back are higher than the ones in the front. Malcolm walks down the light blue carpet and up the 4 steps to the stage in the front of the room. I follow, and he gestures to a silver podium, puts a hand on my forearm, and says,
"You're gonna kill it, Mia."
When he turns to leave, I lurch forward and grab his bicep, pulling him in closely. He smells like sea spray, like a male mermaid. And because I sometimes say ridiculous things when I'm nervous, I whisper, Do you really think Willie Nelson could win? He pulls away slightly, like he's trying to decide whether I'm fun crazy or stalker crazy, then winks and strolls out of the hall. Alone on the stage, I stand at the podium and look down at the seating area, which is lit with dark red LED lighting. Only 8 of the seats are full, and I know all 8 of my judges. Well, I don't know any of them, but I did my research on the flight down from Seattle. 5 are board members of Project X, 3 men and 2 women. They don't carry much weight on the judging panel, so I'm not surprised that all 5 are seated in the second row. About 5 feet below me, the 3 members of the real audience stare at me from the front row. To my left sits Alvin Chang, Chief Operating Officer of Colton Industries and co-founder of Project X. A tall, lean man with short black hair, Chang wears round Harry Potter glasses and a bored look on his face, like he's seen one too many presentations today. Eleanor Ruff, an older woman with spiky silver hair and a piercing glare, sits to my right. She's the executive director of Project X and a well-known badass around Silicon Valley. Directly in front of me, between Chang and Ruff, is Peter Colton himself, the boy wonder, Silicon Valley's most eligible bachelor, and the man voted most likely to win an Antonio Banderas look-alike contest. Okay, I made that last part up. But he does look a bit like the actor with his shoulder-length black hair, olive skin, and custom-tailored black suit. It's not his looks that make him such a rock star of the tech and philanthropic worlds, though. Colton made his first $1 billion back in 2007 when he sold his cloud computing company to some other cloud computing company when he was just 29 years old. In the years since, he's been the kind of billionaire we all tell ourselves we'll be when we finally become billionaires. He bought a soccer team, learned how to pilot his own private jet, summited Kilimanjaro, invested in revolutionary solar technology, and dated movie stars. He also founded and funded Project X, a program that chooses 10 nonprofits per year and gives each one $150,000 to support its mission. Each nonprofit also gets access to Project X's network of entrepreneurs and tech gurus. And that's why I used a personal day to fly 1,000 miles south. That's why I'm staring down at Peter Colton. He stares back, his dark eyes fixed on mine, his smile both warm and serious, like he's concealing a secret I desperately want to know. On any other day, his look would have left me flustered, but today I'm locked in, ready to go. After all, I'm trying to save democracy. I wiggle my toes and rest my hands on the podium, not sure if I should speak first. Thankfully, Chang breaks the silence.
"Hello, Miss Rhodes. I'm Alvin Chang. To my left, Peter Colton. To his left, Eleanor Ruff. Behind us, well, the other judges of Project X.
He gestures toward the board members, but clearly doesn't want to take any time to introduce them.
We apologize for the late change to the structure of the presentation.
No problem, I lie.
You have 5 minutes,
Cheng continues.
followed by 10 minutes of questions. We've reviewed your materials, so our goal is to get to know Mia Rhodes, your passions, and your reasons for applying to Project X.
This is the moment I've been waiting for. I stand as tall as I can at 5'2", throw my head back to get one of my misbehaving auburn curls out of my eye, roll up the sleeves of my white button-down, try in vain to smooth the creases on my black slacks, and say, as boldly as possible, "American democracy is broken." I pause for effect, scanning the eyes of my 3 primary judges and casting occasional glances at the 5 judges behind them. When we're young, we are taught that the American political system is a meritocracy, that the cream rises to the top, that our leaders and representatives are the best among us. That's a lie. What we saw in the last presidential election, and to varying degrees in state and even local elections, was a perverted popularity contest. The barriers to entry are so high that entrenched political power can and does retain its position. The state of campaign finance means we live in a fundamentally corrupt democracy where both parties are under enormous pressure to favor business interests over those of the people. We reward the best media manipulator, the biggest celebrity, or the candidate with the best ad buys, rather than the smartest, bravest, or kindest among us. Furthermore, technology is now moving at a rate which politics and media cannot keep up. Barriers to entry, pervasive financial incentives, a broken media system ruled by technology it can't understand, let alone control. As these trends continue to affect our elections, America will careen down a path toward becoming a failed democracy, a failed state. I step out from behind the podium and walk the stage, imagining that I'm the star of my own TED Talk. America needs a new system for choosing a president. That's why I created Ameritocracy2020.org. Yes, Ruff interjects. We've read the materials, but what exactly is it? Some sort of website? Her question throws me off, both because I'm only 2 minutes into my speech and because she says website like it's some newfangled fad. But Ruff is a technological wizard, so I assume she's speaking disdainfully about my concept, not the technology I'm using to bring it into the world. Ameritocracy2020.org, or just Ameritocracy, is a web-based platform designed to find the best independent presidential candidate in the country, and to fund the candidate to compete against the Democrats and Republicans in the 2020 election. If the presidential election is going to be a reality show, I want to create the fairest, most transparent reality show in history. If our political system is going to be ruled by money, I want independent candidates to be funded, as well as established parties.
Tell us how it works,
Cheng says, crossing his arms. The interrogation has begun, but I'm gaining confidence, so I walk a little circle around the podium, my heels tapping loudly on the wooden stage. Think of Facebook, I reply. Anyone can start a profile, write posts, or upload photos or videos. Ameritocracy is like that. Any U.S. citizen can set up a profile on the site, as long as he or she will be 35 years of age by November 3rd, 2020, Election Day, and meets the other basic requirements to run for president. We have a brief form to fill out, name, background, and so on. Once you set up your profile, you are a candidate for president in 2020. From there, you can upload your issue platform, videos of yourself making your case to your voters, photos of yourself shaking hands and kissing babies, whatever. Essentially, it's a site on which anyone can run for president of the United States.
How will your winner be chosen?
Chang asks. The final day to register is February 1st, 2020. From there, we will have multiple elimination rounds, just like The Voice or most other reality shows. Right now, we're using ranked candidate voting. Registered users can rank their top 10 candidates, and the votes are combined with a proprietary algorithm to determine our leaderboard. I've tied the key elimination rounds to the major party primaries. So, on Super Tuesday in March of 2020, we'll cut the field to 25 candidates. The Republican and Democrat fields will be narrowing down at this time. And media attention will be at its peak. So, we'll narrow the field to allow our voters to focus. Through the spring and early summer of 2020, we'll have a series of debates and eliminations, 25 candidates to 20, 20 to 15, and so on. On July 4th, 2020, around the time of the Republican and Democratic conventions, there will be a final debate, live on our website, featuring the final 6 candidates. We will then open the voting for 24 hours, and at the end of that time, the top vote getter wins our competition and all the money we've raised. At that point, we hope he or she will be in a position to compete in the general election against the Democratic and Republican nominees.
How many candidates do you have right now?
Chang asks, a hint of condescension in his voice. I planned for this question. Ever since I started the website in an espresso-fueled rage shortly after the 2016 election, Ameritocracy has floundered. Now, 2.5 years later, I only have a few dozen candidates, and frankly, most of them are too far outside the mainstream to have any chance of getting elected. I have no PR, no money, and no way to make this site seem credible. That's where I hope Project X will come in. Only a handful at this point, I say. But interest in the 2020 election is picking up, and from the numbers you submitted, Ruff interrupts, it appears no one is using the site. We've grown slowly so far, yes. We? Ruff asks. Just me, actually. I plan to staff it up if I'm selected as a Project X winner.
When you crown a winner, they'll run as a third-party candidate?
Chang asks. As an independent. One of the rules about entering is that you cannot be an elected office holder from the Democratic or Republican Party. A third-party candidate is the future, Ruff says, smirking, and always will be. She and Chang laugh, and I glare at them. I've heard the joke before, and I don't especially like being made fun of. So, are there other rules? Ruff asks, still chuckling. Very few. We accept candidates of all backgrounds and political persuasions.
What about hacking?
Chang asks. We haven't had any problems with that.
What I mean is, if the site grows, what are the risks of hacking?
We will be developing solid layers of security. It's the first time I find myself sounding like the obfuscating politicians I loathe. But the truth is, I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to cybersecurity. I plan to hire experts if the site grows, but it's not something I can speak about with any authority. Okay, Ruff sighs, looking at her watch. But a presidential campaign requires the candidate to raise a couple $100 million. And that's not counting support from the DNC, RNC, and super PACs, which your winning candidate won't have. Assuming more people enter your competition and the site grows, and assuming you crown a winner by vote around July 4th, why do you expect them to have any chance in the 2020 election? 2 reasons, I say. Celebrity and money. As a meritocracy grows, we expect the leading candidates to become well known. to attract mainstream media attention and massive social media followings. Their best posts and videos will go viral. If American politics must be a reality show, we will at least create one with a level playing field and a higher purpose. I smile at Chang and Ruff, but they don't seem impressed. Peter Colton, who hasn't said a word, stares up at me with that mysterious smile, chin resting on his balled-up hands. The second reason we'll have a chance is that we're raising money. Registered users can make donations, and the unique thing about our platform is that the donations aren't made to your favorite candidate. They're made to our organization. The understanding is that after we pay operating costs, we'll give 100% of the remaining funds to our winning candidate in July, no matter who wins.
Celebrity and money.
Chang says,
Good thinking. How much have you raised so far?
We are still in the beginning stages, and $77,300.62, Ruff says, looking down at a stack of papers she seems to have pulled out of thin air. So far, but so what you're really looking at is a long-term play here, Ruff interrupts. You have no chance of impacting the 2020 election, even if we award you a Project X grant. So maybe 2024, 2028. I know she's probably right. Even if I win the money, it could take years to gain traction, given how little attention we've gotten so far. Before I can respond, Chang says,
Tell me more about the candidates. You said there were a few dozen?
38 to be exact. Mostly from the fringes, far right and far left, plus a couple total crackpots. The idea is that as the site grows and more Americans begin to pay attention and vote, more serious candidates will join. And if the idea gets some traction and more credible candidates enter, more donations will come in, which will make more candidates want to enter because the idea itself will begin to seem viable. We're running out of time and my audience is restless. Chang stares at his phone as Ruff puts papers into a briefcase on her lap. I wonder why Peter Colton hasn't spoken, but I prepped a closing statement specifically geared toward Colton, so I may as well deliver it. If you don't have any more questions, I'll finish with an analogy I heard recently. I lean forward and lock eyes with Colton. For decades, very few people climbed Mount Everest. Only the best trained, most professional climbers dared make the trip. Recently, new technologies have allowed amateur climbers to reach the summit at amazing rates. Smaller and more efficient oxygen tanks, better routes, well-trained assistants, fixed ropes and ladders. Technology allows people to do what, just 2 decades ago, would have been impossible. Technology should do the same for democracy. It should give voice to the voiceless, challenge entrenched power, and allow the best ideas and the best people to rise to the top. With your help, I hope Ameritocracy will play a small part in that. There's a slight change in Colton's expression, something more like a regular smile. He stares right at me, and I hold his gaze, gathering all the courage I can muster. I know this idea is just starting out. I know it may take some time. But I've spent the last 6 years managing the day-to-day operations of The Barker, an online magazine with 70 employees. If I'm lucky enough to win Project X, I know I can turn Ameritocracy into something that will make a dent in our broken political system. I hope you'll give me the opportunity to try.
All right, I think that's a good place to stop.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's the long and short of the actual concept of the book, and I think AC, you did a great job of encapsulating that in just the beginning. You know.
Good, thank you. I thought that was awesome, and yeah, that kind of sets up what the book is going to be about. Actually, all 3 books really, because all 3 books cover the whole political competition and all the twists and turns that happen. Because it's interesting, a lot of people, when they hear the concept, they immediately think, oh, what a great idea. I wish our politics were really like that. If you read the books, though, you might have other thoughts, because all sorts of shit goes down in these books that would probably go down if someone actually tried this. And
Right.
so there's a lot of it's an exciting concept, but if it were real, who knows what would actually happen, whether it would end up being a pro or a con overall. But it's certainly an exciting jumping off point for fiction. I'd love to hear if you guys want a little bit of chapter 3 where Peter and Mia meet, because they're sort of a critical pair in the book, and Peter didn't actually say anything in that scene. But I thought we could actually skip the opening of chapter 3 down to where it says, "I sipped the cocktail." It's about a quarter of the way through chapter 3, so maybe.
Is it the beginning of the paragraph?
Yeah,
it's the beginning of a.
It's at 10% on my iPad. I sipped the cocktail, which is a lot better.
Right, and then Peter comes in, just a couple paragraphs down. And one thing about him is, even though he looks like a 1990s Antonio Banderas, he doesn't have a Spanish accent like Antonio Banderas does.
I didn't figure he would.
His parents were Spanish, but he was born in California, born and raised in California. So I think he would have a voice that's. He's incredibly wealthy. He's a little bit full of himself, and he has some good reasons to be. He's very smart, charming, etc. He's dated Rihanna and various other stars. We find out later. He's a bit of a playboy.
And I remember her describing him as having sort of an endearing amount of self-deprecation.
Right.
So he's cocky, but he is also cocky in a way that he sort of knows that he's being cocky and is kind of making fun of himself, So
Gotcha.
Like, darling,
Yeah, he's got just enough. Exactly. I think that's from the second book, maybe, but yeah, that's a great description. He's got. I say great, even though I wrote it, because I forget what I write most of the time. But I'm glad you remembered. Yeah, he's got just enough self-deprecation about his own arrogance. Like, he knows the absurdity of the world he lives in. He lives in an almost unbelievable amount of wealth and luxury, and
you want to somehow make him still endearing. Really, you want to make us fall for him in book 1 in a way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It actually says, it says, though he looks like he might have a captivating Spanish accent, he doesn't. He speaks quickly and without as much charm as you might expect. So he's charming, but the way he looks, you would expect him to be, Antonio Banderas charming, and he's not that charming, but he's still charming. Okay, cool. Enough said.
Okay. Oh, we're starting from.
And just stop wherever you guys want. Like, I don't think you guys need to read this whole scene necessarily, because it goes on and on and on.
Okay.
But just so they can get their patter back, get their patter down.
I sip the cocktail, which is a lot better than I expected, and scan the room. Dozens of interesting-looking people mill about, most in their 20s and 30s, some dressed up, some not. I'm about to take a seat on a blue-tinted hay bale and settle in for some serious people-watching when Peter Colton walks through the door. It's almost as though the crowd parts for him, too, because he moves easily from the door to the center of the hall, pauses at the mechanical bull, then glances at me as though he knew I'd be standing awkwardly near the hay bales. Seconds later, he's at my side, his shoulder-length black hair parted in the center and tucked behind his ears.
Nice to see you again,
he says. Though he looks like he might have a captivating Spanish accent, he doesn't. He was born and raised in the U.S., and he speaks quickly and without much charm, as you might expect. I take in his outfit, a vintage tuxedo, the color of bone, embroidered with elaborate brown stitching down the lapels. You're late to your own party.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for the dress.
Love the boots.
Thanks. I sip my drink and look around the room, trying to think of something else to say, and I feel his eyes following me. To break the awkward silence, I say, "Do you want one?" He smiles at me with that same quizzical smile he had plastered across his face for most of my presentation.
I don't drink.
I expect him to continue speaking, to explain why I'm here, why he didn't say anything during my presentation, and maybe even why he had Malcolm lie about the canceled PowerPoint. But he doesn't. We are both quiet, staring at each other as shouts near the mechanical bull fill the room. The look lasts long enough to be odd, but not long enough for my cheeks to get red, as they sometimes do when I'm out of my element. I can't tell whether he's trying to make this awkward or if he just has an odd manner. I can't take it anymore. So, what did you want to talk to me about? Without answering, he takes my hand and pulls me gently towards the back of the hall. To a raised just gonna start there, over there. Without answering, he takes my hand and pulls me gently toward the back of the hall to a raised platform covered in straw and surrounded by a worn wooden fence. The 4 tables on the platform are unoccupied, lit from above by the same blue and silver light that pervades the space, and covered in large artificial candles, their LED flames somehow flickering realistically. We take the table in the corner, sitting side by side and looking out so we can survey the room. I talk a lot when I'm nervous, and right now my stomach is doing somersaults. "Is this the VIP area?" I ask, half joking.
Actually, yes.
"You didn't say anything at my presentation."
No.
"And you told Malcolm to lie to me about canceling the PowerPoint?"
Yes.
"And now, here we are."
Yes.
He still wears that damn smile, and I sip my Blade Runner cowboy to keep my annoyance from showing, the flavor of the cocktail growing on me as its contents take effect. Why am I here?
I'll tell you. But first, tell me why you started Ameritocracy. And I don't mean the rehearsed answer for the board of directors at the presentation. Tell me about the moment the idea struck.
As he says the word struck, he claps his hands together, shaking free a lock of hair from behind his ear. He tucks it back and smiles, more like a person this time. As I contemplate my answer, I finish my drink and Peter gets the attention of a waiter standing in the corner of the VIP section, who I hadn't even noticed when we sat.
Another drink for Miss Rhodes, and I'd like a Red Bull with lime. Right away, Peter.
Sorry, the waiter says. Sorry, your thing did a weird thing.
Yeah, everything cut off for a second.
Oh, really? Where did
It's
we
fine now.
cut off?
Just the right away. Peter.
Just for like 2 seconds.
we can start again.
It was that
Like,
digital.
that's a really strange version of a waiter, Jeff. I don't think that one's
Yeah, that's
exactly what
off.
the author
That's
had
off.
in mind.
From right away, Peter.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we missed.
Right away, Peter.
The waiter says. Peter smiles at him, then turns back to me.
So, tell me.
Your employees call you Peter?
Most of them, but let's not make this about me.
Fine, fine. I'm not a big drinker, so the cocktail has me feeling loose enough to press through my insecurities. The idea came to me about 3 years ago. Just a tiny kernel of a whiff of a notion during the 2016 election cycle. I was disgusted by the whole process. The negativity, the superficiality. I was already thinking about what I could do to change things. Then we got the results, and I kicked into high gear. The morning after the election, I pulled out a blank yellow legal pad and wrote a manifesto.
What was the first thing you wrote?
It's embarrassing. He shrugs.
Tell me anyway.
I wrote, America perfected the reality show, then became one. He leans in, the light from the LED candles dancing on his face.
Well, America does love slogans. And how'd you come up with the word Ameritocracy?
I did what people do in the 21st century. I hopped online and started looking at URLs. I considered third party, America 2020, and a million others.
Tell me some of the others.
Oh, some of them are pretty corny.
Try me.
PresidentFreedom.usa or PresidentFreedom.us, which I considered mostly because the domain name was available. Then there was, wait, let me think. There was the 2020 election show, Pick 2020, Democracy 2.0, Democracy, the website, and my personal favorite, Democracy, the game show.
Why didn't you go with that?
Too on the nose. And anyway, most of the URLs were taken. I needed something jazzier, something catchier. I liked the idea of implying America plus meritocracy, so I settled on a meritocracy. I say the last word with a flourish, moving my hand through the air like Vanna White, unveiling a new puzzle. I move, like Vanna White, unveiling a new puzzle, a move I learned from my mom, who never misses an episode of Wheel of Fortune. I thought a meritocracy could be like Google, a word no one knew before the search engine came along, and now it's a household word.
It is catchy.
Peter says as the drinks arrive. He squeezes a lime wedge into the champagne flute of Red Bull.
Tell me about the moment. Not just what you did, but how you felt. You wake up on Wednesday, November 9th, 2016, and what do you feel?
His smile is gone now, and I'm starting to feel the particular nature of his charm. It's an intensity of interest, a desire to know, and an impatience with superficialities. I consider myself a no BS kind of person, so the moment I see this about him, I relax fully and answer honestly. I cried. I'd been obsessed with the election for a year, following it on Twitter, listening to podcasts, occasionally checking in on cable news. By the end of it, I was emotionally worn out. The big twist ending was like a kick in the stomach. I wouldn't have been thrilled with any outcome. The whole process was so screwed up and depressing, but riveting at the same time. It's the cliché of the car crash you can't look away from.
The car crash is America itself.
Exactly. So, I wake up Wednesday morning, check Twitter and CNN to make sure I hadn't dreamed it, then cried for 30 minutes. I wasn't just sad about what happened. I was overwhelmed by the whole process. But mostly, I was disappointed with how I'd handled it. I got wrapped up in the spectacle, in the horse race aspect of it. I felt like I hadn't done anything. The lights dim throughout the hall, shifting from silver blue to deep maroon. I look up, but Peter catches my eye.
Please, continue.
In those first moments, I hated the country, hated the hypocrisy of generations of politicians. I wanted to firebomb the White House and the cable news stations and the New York Times and the Washington Post and all the podcasts and local papers and lying politicians and every goddamn congressman on earth. Not to mention the lobbyists who line their pockets. The only person I hated more than all of them was myself. For my gullibility, for quitting, for taking the road of cynicism and defeat and hopelessness.
What do you mean quitting? It sounds like you followed the election closely.
We are getting too close to a subject I'd rather avoid, so I gesture toward the center of the ballroom, where the mechanical bull is being wheeled out.
See.
Is something happening? I mean, in the room? Peter studies the room, then looks back at me.
Dancing starts soon.
Oh, is Malcolm gonna play his stuff?
Not sure. I don't get into the details of the parties.
Oh, okay, I say, a little disappointed. Peter takes my hand softly. then waits until I look up.
Please,
He says,
I just want to understand. What did you mean by quitting? You have a full-time job, and I bet that you know more about politics than anyone in the room.
I didn't vote, I say, emptying my second drink and studying him for a reaction.
That's not what I was expecting.
Well, everyone knew who was going to win Washington State, so it wasn't going to affect anything, at least not in the presidential race.
True enough.
I don't know. I followed the presidential race so closely that I stopped paying attention to local politics, to ballot measures, my congressional rep. Everything else fell away. I became a spectator at a car crash.
That's understandable.
Understandable, but not forgivable. I hope he'll tell me it is forgivable, but he doesn't.
All right, I think that's a good place to stop there.
Yeah, I was about to say that's good. I'd forgotten how little Peter actually says in that scene. He's just like, he comes off kind of as a jerk just because he's sort of asking question after question and grilling her, which I guess was.
I was really fond of your. I personally was really fond of your interpretation of him, though. It was sort of. I don't know. I thought it was the true interest and sort of like billionaire aloofness, but also charm really came through.
And that's how he's supposed to be. It's like, and he is a bit of a jerk in some ways. Not a jerk exactly, just like he's not super forthcoming about his own stuff. You know, he's a famous public figure, and he's interested in her, but doesn't. You know, he's not the kind of guy who would just launch into his own, deepest feelings right off the bat. Right. So no, I actually think it worked. I had just forgotten how little he actually said in that scene. He was more one-word answers, kind of making her uncomfortable.
Right. All right. So do we want to move on to chapter 11 then?
Yeah. Why don't we do a little bit of that? And let me just see here.
Oh wait, I don't see a chapter 11. Hold on. Part 2. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Part 2 and Part 3 are collapsible.
Collapsible.
So I think we could skip the first 8 or 9 paragraphs, which are kind of referring to other stuff in the book, and you could go to. I'm about to start typing up a formal plan, and that's when Marlon Dixon, who is one of the main entrants into the Ameritocracy competition, shows up. He hasn't yet entered, but he sort of storms their offices. And this is a character who is a black Southern Baptist minister from Texas. And, I imagine him speaking, I don't know exactly know what a Texas accent is like, but in terms of his cadence, he's an incredibly gifted public speaker. He wears a GoPro camera at all times and is broadcasting YouTube videos all over the place. So he's a little bit full of himself, but he's a very gifted speaker. So think of Reverend Jesse Jackson or even Barack Obama, very talented at conveying ideas in public through words, long, slow cadences and exclamations, etc., quoting the Bible. And he's a minister, but he's a very activist minister who does all sorts of things, and he's on the far left of the political spectrum in terms of, on most issues, and so he does things like hides illegal immigrants in the basement of his church so they can't get deported, and is handing out food to the homeless while quoting Bible verses and getting arrested. And he's sort of a really interesting activist minister and a talented speaker, and he storms their offices wearing a GoPro camera because he wants to broadcast all of his doings out in the world to all of his followers online and in his church, etc. So that's sort of the key to this scene.
Do you have a timbre for his voice in mind?
What do you mean by timbre? I don't even know what that means.
The the quality of the voice, like deep, scratchy.
Deep, yeah. So deep, so about, you can imagine him being like maybe mid 40s. He's
Okay.
also in really good shape, like kind of, I imagine him looking a little like the actor Terry Crews. So mid 40s, in good shape, deep voice, hugely charismatic.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like imagine, Jesse Jackson standing in front of his church preaching, except
Okay.
that he speaks like that most of the time. I
Right.
don't know if that'll end up sounding too over the top or not, but
It probably will, and it'll be glorious. Okay.
yeah,
So
you can play with it and have fun with it.
Yeah.
is there a you said we're starting like in the middle of the
Yeah. So no, I just thought that Annie could skip all the intro paragraphs, which are about other stuff, and go to I'm about to start typing a formal plan. Oh, and then Steph also comes into this scene for the first
Right.
time. So Steph
okay,
is,
so we get to try out Steph.
yeah, so she's sort of
Yeah.
the second most important of the female candidates, and she's the best friend of Mia. She is, in some ways, more confident than
The
Mia, more
female
experienced in
characters.
business. What's that?
The second most important of the female characters. You
Right.
said female candidates.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, characters. Right. Steph is definitely not a candidate. She's going to be the executive director of
Conflict of interest.
Ameritocracy. Yeah, exactly. That's a conflict of interest. So she is, I imagine her having I don't think I said anything about her voice actually, or even where she's from in this book.
I just want to make her sound big and smart.
Yeah, big and smart. And in many cases, I love what you're doing with Mia, because she sounds both confident, but also, not 100% confident, a little
Right.
insecure, which she should be a little insecure because she's entering this
Steph
massive
is
world.
like,
Steph is a little more of a badass. She's a
Yeah.
little more at home. She's been executive director of,
Oh,
Did you disappear?
I don't know.
AC, we don't hear your voice anymore.
I think he might need to come back in.
Okay. See if you somehow got kicked out of the
Good.
group.
Gotcha. Well, I still see his picture, but he may need to come back in.
What do you mean by come back in? We could
just get started.
Yeah.
You think you're happy? You have a good handle on Steph?
I think so. And if he can't get his voice back in, he can always type in the comments, and you can read what he's saying to the audience.
Okay.
All right, here we go. I'm about to start typing up a formal plan to send to Steph for feedback when shouting erupts outside my office door.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. One more thing. We were getting comments about how your accent kind of was fading in and out.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of noticed that too. I want to do a slighter accent, so
Okay.
I think that's what's happening is like I'll notice that I'm getting a little too into the accent, and then I'll be like, oh, I want it to be more mild than that.
Yeah.
Like bring it back. Which is like a really tricky thing to do.
Well,
like
especially since you're narrating.
Is hard.
Yeah, well, especially since you're narrating with it. Like, while you're narrating, you're going to get sick of the accent, especially if you are like slightly insecure about one aspect or another. So like
but that's
just
good
going to be about
feedback.
hammering it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm about to start typing a formal plan to send to Steph for feedback when shouting erupts outside my office door. Looking up, I see a handsome, broad-shouldered black man standing next to Steph. And he's got a GoPro video camera strapped to his chest. You can't film here, Steph says, but he's not listening. Instead, the man walks a lap around the perimeter of the office, a huge smile across his face, shaking hands with our staff members one by one. He's wearing a tan suit and shiny black shoes. I'm pretty sure I recognize him, though I don't remember where from. From where? He introduces himself to a pasty-faced social media intern who looks terrified.
Marlon Dixon,
he says, shaking the kid's hand vigorously before moving on.
Marlon Dixon,
he says to one of Benjamin's assistants. When he makes it to Benjamin, he again says,
Marlon Dixon,
but adds,
I hear you're the man in charge of the site, and you know I've got some questions.
Benjamin shakes his hand awkwardly and sits flummoxed on the armrest of the chair before losing his balance and falling to the floor. I've seen enough. Scurrying across the office, I shout, "What's going on?" The man helps Benjamin up, apologizes profusely, and I step between them. Who are you?
The Reverend Marlon Dixon,
he says, extending a hand and shaking mine so hard it nearly breaks. The man is only a few inches taller than me, but barrel-shaped and muscular. His face is clean-shaven, and the more I stare at him, the more I think I've seen his face go by on a meme on Twitter or Facebook. Are you? I'm trying to place him, but the little red camera light blinking on his chest throws me off.
Marlon Dixon,
he says again. His voice is full of passion and a slight accent I think of as Southern, but can't place. I've got that, I say. But who? Why? He's Marlon Dixon, Steph says, walking up next to me, reading from her phone. Southern Baptist minister from Abilene, Texas. Recognition hits me. Are you the minister who got arrested for...
For serving food to the homeless? Yes, I did, and I'm proud of it. I've been smeared in the papers for bailing out prostitutes and preaching to junkies in the park in the wee hours of the morning. Yes, I have, and I'm proud of it. I've been arrested for sheltering undocumented immigrants in the basement of my church, and I'm proud of it. I even got hauled in for gathering with my congregation on the steps of the Supreme Court of these United States to read from the Gospel of Matthew. And you know what? I'm proud of it. Yes, ma'am, I've been arrested 12 times altogether, once for each of Jesus's apostles.
Given that speech before, Steph says.
Once or twice.
Dixon admits with a disarming, you got me smile.
It's a question I've gotten before, and sister, any preacher who says he's never reused a sermon is lying.
I recall a profile of Dixon after his first arrest about 5 years ago. For 2 decades, he'd worked on hunger issues in Texas, but when Galveston passed an ordinance against feeding the homeless, Dixon kicked into action. Wearing his GoPro body cam, he gathered 30 members of his church on a Saturday, filled a van with food, and spent the day handing it out in a park while dressed in his white and gold preaching robes. When the police dragged him away, Bible in one hand, wooden spoon covered in gravy in the other, he was reading from John 3:16.
But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not live in word or talk, but in deed and in truth.
The video went viral within hours of his release on bail. Dixon received a small fine, plus 3 months of probation and community service hours. But the episode thrust him into the national spotlight and sparked an intense online debate about Christian activism. Since the arrest, Dixon had been wearing a GoPro most of the day, uploading thousands of hours of video on his church website, and to his church website, as well as YouTube and other video sites. He's much shorter in person, but his voice is the same. impassioned and loud enough to echo off the walls of the office. That raises a question. What is he doing in my office? Mr. Dixon, I say, welcome to Ameritocracy headquarters, but I need to ask you to stop filming. I give him my firmest look, and before he can object, I add, now.
Happy to oblige,
He says, pressing a button on the side of the camera. I'd like to hear why you're here, but my staff is hard at work. Will you come to my office?
Happy to oblige.
He follows me, Steph right on his heels. The three of us sit, me behind my desk, Steph in the chair next to me, and Dixon across from us. Can we get you a water or a coffee or anything? I ask.
Thank you. Water, please.
His please comes with a dazzling smile that, to my surprise, doesn't look affected or fake. Stephanie hands him a water from the mini fridge in the corner, and he drinks half of it, then wipes the glistening sweat from his bald head. So, I say, how can I help you? He drowns the water in 3 large chugs, then places the empty bottle on the desk.
I do apologize if the filming made you uncomfortable. It's just my habit. I believe in holding people accountable for their misdeeds, so I make it easy to hold me accountable for mine. More than that, if I can share with the world how beautiful and rewarding the Lord's work is, maybe a few more people decide to take part in that work. But my mission isn't yours, and I'm sorry if I filmed anything I shouldn't have.
It's okay, I say. But why are you here?
Well, Miss Rhodes, I'd like to interview you and your staff, if you'll allow it. I'm thinking about running for president of these United States, and I came to see whether your site is the place to do it.
Shall we continue?
I think that's good.
Okay.
Hey there,
I think that's good.
I'm back. I got back a couple minutes ago.
Cool.
Sorry, I had a power outage that killed everything. This is what happens when you live on a peninsula, on a peninsula, on a peninsula. Which is literally, I'm on a peninsula that's on 2 other peninsulas. So anyway, I thought that sounded great. The only thing I would say is, I think on some of Dixon's lines, especially when he has longer speeches, you could even go with more, like, I don't know what it's called, I guess cadence, like the rising and then lowering of voice, like ministers do. But it's hard because like that could easily end up overdone. But when he's got some parts where he's got 3 paragraphs in a row where he would really be going up and down and quiet and loud and like he's desperately trying to convince you of something.
Okay,
I thought it worked great though.
Did the accent sound a little less wobbly at that pass, or is it still pretty, from a listener's ear, is it still pretty in and out?
The Connecticut accent?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, someone was saying it was they weren't noticing it, and I think I could barely, like, I didn't notice it till they said that, and it sounded like it was coming in and out on that pass. I don't remember noticing. Maybe some listener will chime in.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it coming in and out, but it's such a subtle accent that I can, like, it's weird. I can tune it out. It's weird. Which I think, like, which is good in some respects. We don't want it too obvious.
Right. So you prefer the milder version of it. Well, I just need to get kind of locked into it.
Yeah, if you just lock into I liked the reading you did on the first chapter that we recorded it. I think you were very steady with it. And it's probably easier to stay steady with it when you're not, when you're not doing it live. But
right, going back and yeah.
But I played the 2 versions you did initially with the accent without it to a few people, and everyone preferred the one with the CT accent. So I definitely think that's the way to go. And but yeah, I think mild is good because I think the main thing is I just hear a lot of relatability in your voice, which I think is really the number one most important thing. Is because this is going to be 20 hours of people living with Mia and her internal life. So as long as you're relatable as a woman who's doing this big incredible thing and is also going through difficult times with it. I think that's the key thing.
Right.
But anyway, I only heard probably the last 3 to 5 minutes of that scene, but I thought that it sounded good. The little bit I heard of Steph sounded good. I think I only heard one sentence of hers though.
Yeah.
But it sounded good, and I love Marlon Dixon. I think he sounded good.
Well, you'll get to replay it if you want to, so that you can, because he has that one big speech there that he has scripted basically to react to when people ask him that question.
Yes, the part about all the things he's done. Yeah, that I heard the tail end of that, and I thought it sounded great. So okay. I think that's where you want to be with that, and yeah, I can send you notes on a few of the other characters who have the most personality to them of the candidates.
Yeah, if there's any more that you want to do on the show, we have like probably another 10-15 minutes, or if not, if you're good with what we've done, we can be done too.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I think we've nailed all the big things, and the only other really far out there character, there's a couple. The only other really far out there male character is Tanner Futch, and that's a pretty easy one because he's based pretty literally on Alex Jones, and you can find a lot of Alex Jones videos online, and obviously he's getting more and more famous as the days go on. So that should be fairly.
Can we do just a little bit of him?
Yeah, let's do a little bit of that. Should be fun. It's chapter. Let me see where he comes in as chapter. Hold on, let me find him real quick. Somewhere in the middle, he first appears.
I'm blanking on the name of the girl, the sort of out there girl character.
Yeah, Destiny O'Neill.
Destiny O'Neill, yeah.
Yeah, and I sent you some notes on her, and she is, I mean, she's a tough one because she is someone who's actually acting stupider than she is. She's actually very smart and conniving.
Voices for different people, right? I mean, for different conversations that she has with different people, her whole sort of thing changes.
Yeah, I mean, she calls herself a South Park Republican, which is like this is a real thing that some people call themselves, a certain kind of, she uses her sexuality a lot. She's very, she's essentially an actor to get famous on YouTube, spouting ideas she thinks will appeal to mostly teenage boys. And this is based on some real people also. And it's she's a little kind of like Jessica Rabbit from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. She's totally over the top and syrupy, but also very conniving, and is essentially running a business as a political voice online, which is, it's a booming business these days. Tanner Futch first appears in chapter 15. Let's see where he is. It's about halfway through chapter 15. She's waiting. Oh, she's going on AC 360, Anderson Cooper's show. This is her first big TV appearance, and she's surprised to find out that Tanner Futch, who is her kind of far alt-right candidate, and Maria Ortiz Morales, who is considering joining at this point, who is an actual independent congresswoman from Ohio, who's a more mainstream type candidate. They're appearing on AC 360 with her. And Futch, so there's a break about halfway through the chapter. There's a scene break. And then Morales comes in.
There's something about saying, is that the next part of the scene break, the next scene?
Yeah, that's the next part. So it's before that. It's the scene that starts, I fake my way through the first 5 minutes.
Okay.
So it's about 40% of the way through chapter 15. And then about 5 paragraphs down. So we need I don't know if you can do an Anderson Cooper voice, but he's actually in this book, the real Anderson Cooper from CNN. And then he sounds, he's the perfect, he sounds just like, a stereotypical anchor man on television would sound. He's pretty traditional in that sense. in his cadence anyway. And then so Tanner Futch comes in, loud, bombastic, interrupting, offensive, and Morales is reasonable, kind of soft spoken. She's also a war veteran, so she's a very serious candidate, but very different in style than Tanner Futch is.
Right. How about
so
we just start with first of all, by Morales says first of all.
First of all. Sure.
Or is that not enough?
I want to object, but the question, So other than this, this is just setting up the scene. Just giving a little bit of descriptive stuff. Do you want us to start at the beginning of the chapter break, or straight over to the?
Maybe Anderson's next question is to Maria Ortiz Morales.
There we go.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
Okay. Anderson's next question is to Maria Ortiz Morales.
Ms. Morales, I'd like to get your perspective on this. You lost a leg in the war in Afghanistan at the age of 33, were honorably discharged from the Navy, and served 10 years as an intelligence analyst for the CIA. When your husband passed away, you returned home to Cincinnati and ran for Congress. A decorated war hero, how would you feel about taking orders from a commander-in-chief elected by an internet poll?
I want to object, but the question wasn't to me. First of all, Morales says, her voice steady and quiet. As a member of Congress, I don't take orders from anyone except the voters in my district. But I have to say that the concept troubles me greatly.
You like the system as it is because it benefits the politically correct status quo.
It's Tanner Futch. It's Tanner Futch, loud and booming, interrupting Morales. It's Tanner Futch, loud and bombastic, interrupting Morales.
Please, let her finish.
Anderson interjects. Thank you, Morales says. As a service member, I learned to set aside my personal partisan beliefs to serve the mission. I served under commander-in-chief. I've served under commanders-in-chief from both parties. And though I choose to run for Congress as an independent, I respect both parties.
Can I give you one direction with Morales here?
Yeah.
Can you try basing her voice up in her nose? Not like me, but like a warmth starting from the nose and coming down.
As a conservative member, I learned to set aside my personal partisan beliefs to serve the mission.
Okay, but keep the deep voice that you had going.
As a conservative member, I learned to set aside my personal partisan beliefs to serve the mission. I served under commanders-in-chief from both parties, and though I choose to run for Congress as an independent, I respect both parties. Does that make a difference?
That does make a difference. It just feels like a little more commanding.
I respect both parties.
That sounded good. Yeah, I can't hear the differences as well as you guys can, but at the end, I definitely thought it sounded a little better.
Okay, cool. I respect both parties.
Yeah, she sounds fairly presidential, which she should sound, because she ends up being a fairly serious candidate in the whole thing, and she's the only one. She's one of the only ones who's an actual elected politician already, so she would have a fairly practiced and professional manner of speaking. So that sounds good. I loved how bombastic Futch was. Should we do a little more of that there?
Yeah.
Start at Futch grabs.
Futch grabs the first opening he can.
You respect special interests. You're the token independent in Congress. You're like the one black dude in an all-white fraternity. They let you in so they can say they have an independent member. Ooh, look! Anyone can run for Congress in America.
I'm speechless. But like the producer, instructed, I gaze straight into the camera, motionless, a pleasant look glued to my face.
Are you saying Ms. Morales isn't independent?
Anderson asks.
I'm saying that no one can be independent in the current system.
Futch says.
That's what makes Ameritocracy so important. For the first time, we're going to hear the voice of the people.
Not the special interests, not the deep state, not the bankers in Europe and Asia who want to destroy America by taking away our guns and opening our borders. The voice of the people. I disagree with Maria Ortiz Morales about everything. I despise her gay rights, pro-Latino, pro-immigration, so-called progressivism. But I'd welcome her to join Ameritocracy. Let's find out where the people stand on these issues. Not the bankers and media elite who fall all over themselves just because she's Latino and happen to get hit by an RPG on a hill outside Kabul. What do you say, Maria? Do you want to join the most transparent, most democratic political experiment of all time?
Futch's rant is the most passionate case for meritocracy that has been made on national TV, and though I don't love the fact that it came from him, I have to admire his ability to articulate the vision.
Okay, how's that?
I think that's great. I think it's interesting. You know, we tried to make Futch. This is the first time they've appeared on national TV with this idea, and so Futch is obviously very far right in the American political context, but he's a passionate defender of the idea itself because he's just as against the current political system as people from the far left are, and a lot of other people are. So I think it works. I found him surprisingly likable and entertaining, so I think that's a good thing.
All right, cool. Well, I cherish the opportunity to lampoon Alex Jones.
And it's going to be good when he and Marlon Dixon go at it in some of the later books.
That's going to be great.
That'll be fun. And there's some good exchanges between the characters where, you know, it's really theatrical. It's a ton of dialogue in a row in some of the debates and speeches they have, where from a book perspective, it may even be too much dialogue in a row, but from a audio perspective with your guys' performances, I think it's going to be awesome.
Right.
All right. Well, hey, AC, thanks so much for coming on the show and helping us work these out. We're going to be working on the first book as much as we can while Annie's to close very soon. So I don't think we'll be able to finish the first book until the end of August. But it's in the process, and you know, we'll try and release each book within 2 or 3 weeks of each other.
Yeah, that's
so everybody just
awesome.
Yeah, so you guys, if you are really interested in the book, like if this kind of sold you on it already and you can't wait for the audio, I left the link to the book in the description below. So go pick it up on Kindle if you must.
Go, yeah.
Pick it up.
And it's actually now, as of today, it's actually available on all ebook platforms. It's on Nook and all those things now too.
Great.
So anybody can go grab it. But yeah, the audio is going to be a great accompaniment to it. My wife says it's like hearing, you know, the book for the first time when I played her the first chapter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you can read the book and really enjoy it, and it might even make you look forward to the audio version more because it's just such a drama. It's such a theatrical sort of.
Yeah, and especially once all the characters show up and there starts to be really just a ton of drama. I think you guys will really just do a great job with it and make it super entertaining. So I know personally, I read the book so many times during the editing phase that I'm sick of reading the book, and I can't wait to listen to it though.
Okay, so one more thing we have now. The fact that we're working together, AC and I, is not like out of left field or anything. We worked together a couple years ago on his first. Was this your first novel that you published?
Yes, The Anonymous Source was my first
The Anonymous
book.
Source. We worked together on The Anonymous Source, which at the time was, I mean, in my opinion, was my best production. So if you guys look that up on Audible, you'll be able to pick that up for now, and you know, check out AC's writing style. I think it's great, and that's why I talked to him about doing this book as well, because I just missed working with him, and so yeah, go pick that up if you're interested, and also if you liked watching us, if you liked hanging out with us while we worked out these characters, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're always doing something at least once a week. So and you know, we're always working on interesting projects. So thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.